Hello, my name is Olurotimi Osha. We are still in the month of June 2026, what I've called month of exposés. And I want to provide an update regarding the pretrial detention of former CIA senior executive uh, David J. Rush. Of course, an arrest warrant was executed for him in May of 2026 after his home was raided by the FBI on May 18, 2026, in which they retrieved 303 1 kilogram gold bars valued at over $40 million, and he's since been charged with theft of government property under 18 USC section 641. And of course, he did fabricate major portions of his resume. So I'm assuming he's going to be charged with falsification of government records under 18 USC section 1001. But of course, so maybe we'll be seeing a superseding indictment. But importantly, what I want to do today is correct an earlier video I made in which I alluded to a statement by a former CIA officer who has a podcast, and she did a video blog in which she called the Senior Executive Service Senior Intelligence Service, and I thought it was odd since in the media, David Rush has been called described as a member of the CIA Senior Executive Service. The criminal complaint, that's the affidavit of criminal complaint filed by FBI Special Agent Matthew Johnson, also describes him as a member of the Senior Executive Service. However, I decided to just do some research on my own, and I came across the document. It's a 62-page document that establishes proposes, and I expect establishes the Senior Intelligence Service. So the CIA officer was right. There is a Senior Intelligence Service. I'm not beyond mistake, so I'm making that correction now. So the Senior Executive Service is the intelligence community's equivalent of the Senior Executive Service, right? So again, the Senior Executive Service, it's in the Federal Civil Service, and they're the highest cadre of they're the elite highest cadre of the U.S. federal government, right? So they're just below the highest presidential appointees. So in fact, some of the Senior Executive Service, about 10% of them, are presidential appointees as well. And when I say highest presidential appointees, I mean the cabinet secretaries, right? Cabinet secretaries like a Secretary of Defense, and an undersecretary, right? In fact, undersecretaries are also members of the Senior Executive Service, because 10% of them come from the SES cadre. The SES, they're mapped as being equivalent to generals in the military, like flag officers, generals, they're mapped as being equivalent in status and prestige. But the SES, by the way, they're civilians. They're not military people. They're civilians, right? And they run the Federal Civil Service. However, the CIA officer was right that there is a Senior Intelligence Service. I don't know if it's still used, but they are exactly equivalent to the SES, right? But they tailored it, they customized it to meet the needs of the intelligence community. The intelligence community, they operate in a different way, in secrecy, under their clandestine operations, and so the Senior Intelligence Service is just tailored. It's just a tailored Senior Executive Service for the intelligence community, and so maybe that's why they're still referred to as senior executive service. But I found, let me read from the document I found. The title of the document, and I've read it, is, what is it called? It is Basic Proposals, Senior Executive Service. Oh, so it's funny. It's even called Senior Executive Service, and so they are called senior, and then it says Senior Intelligence Service Plan. The Office of Personnel Task Group, I'm just reading directly, established to design and develop a senior intelligence service for those employees under the DCI's authority. So DCI is no longer a term that's used. So this is a 1979 document under President Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was the one who established the senior executive service. He wanted to make the civil service prestigious, like in England. The civil service is more prestigious in England than the private sector. Like the civil servants are very prestigious in England. In fact, they hire from, at least their top people, they hire from, exclusive schools, and it's really prestigious. And so that's what Jimmy Carter tried to do. He tried to make the senior executive service in the federal government, to make the U.S. federal government also prestigious, right? So the DCI is Director of Central Intelligence, right? It's no longer called Director. It's no longer a nomenclature that's used. DCI, Director of Central Intelligence. It's now called Director of CIA, right? But this is a 1979 document under President Jimmy Carter. For those employees under the DCI's authority, has completed a detailed study of the data available on the Civil Service Reform Act Senior Executive Service. Right. So I'm just looking for something specific. So basically it's saying, so the policies and procedures of the Senior Intelligence Service will be fully applicable to all organizational elements, right? To all organizational elements. The principles and concepts of the Reform Act Senior Executive Service provisions, however, are essentially sound. Okay, so it's basically making it parallel to the Senior Executive Service, but it's making sure that it meets the needs of the intelligence community, right, as leaders, to satisfy the needs of the intelligence community. The task group has, I'm looking for there was something specific that I saw. That the overall system should be constructed along the general lines of the Federal Senior Executive Service, but with adaptations as appropriate to better serve the particular needs of the DCI in accomplishing agency missions, right? So you see, it's so they are Senior Executive Service, but specifically tailored to the intelligence community. And here it's talking about the pay, that a basic compensation subsystem patterned after President Carter's published SES salary range, example, Executive Scale 1 through Executive Scale 6, be established, even though there are current indications that Congress may not lift the current limitations on executive level salaries for fiscal year 1980. So again, so it's talking about compensation. So members, the highest levels of the Senior Executive Service, in this case, where it pertains to the CIA and intelligence community, they're called the Senior Intelligence Service. They receive as much as they're capped at the salary of the Vice President of the United States, Currently, the Vice President of the United States earns about $289,400. There are people in the U.S. federal government in special agencies like the SEC that make far more, though. Some make $1 million, right? So because they bring in special skills, because CEOs in the private sector make millions, scores of millions of dollars. There was a time Mike Eisner of Disney, this was a decade, 20 years ago when I was in business school. I think he had compensation of about $500 million, right? So the CEOs in the private sector make far more. You can see we now have a trillionaire, Elon Musk, right, who became briefly a government worker, as head of Doge, right? Of course, that was just him doing his service to America. So, in any event, you don't go into the federal civil service because of money, but of course, you have to meet your expenses. You can't live like a pauper, or otherwise, you will not be able to fulfill your duties and responsibilities under the Constitution of the United States, and to help the American taxpayer. But federal civil servants don't go in it for money. My name's Olurotimi Osha, so that's just why I was doing this video, to make the correction that there is a senior intelligence service. It's the senior executive service, but tailored specifically to adjust, to accommodate the specific needs and nuances of the intelligence community and the clandestine services. My name is Olurotimi Osha, and I'll keep you posted. Thank you.